Hi everyone, it's Monica and welcome back to Tailor Made Cards for You. Well, ordinarily I don't like to tape when I'm putting together these collages, and the reason is it just takes me so long to come out with the layout. I've started this morning, and while the background is pretty easy to put together, a lot of times when I'm putting together my layers, it takes me quite a long time. Sometimes I even have to get up and walk away and then come back because there's so many possibilities when you're working with layers and collages. And for me, the way that I know it's done is just a gut feeling. You know, I'll play with some of my ephemera, I'll rearrange it several times, and then after a while, I just know that this is the layout I'm going to work with. Now, when I first started, my original thought was to put together some sort of a travel theme, especially with the coronavirus going on right now. One of the things that my husband and I love to do is travel. And, you know, one of the thoughts is everybody's panicking, which I get it. But this too will, you know, we'll get through it. This too shall pass. And I wanted to just kind of build something to reassure ourselves that you can't give up on your dreams. You can't give up on your traveling just because we're going through a trying time right now. And this is ultimately what I came up with. So I just kind of wanted to share with you kind of what I used and how I got to this point before I actually lay it down. Now the background here, let me show you what I started out with. I just started out with a thin piece of, I think it's called balsa wood. And I got this at Michael's, and it's very thin, as you can see. And I ended up just staining it with some walnut stain. And I would lift this up right now, but I don't want all my pieces to fall. But I stained it the front and the back, and then I ended up using some of the tissue paper from the Tim Holtz collection. And this is it's called Collage paper, and it's the Travel and Voyage paper. And as you can see, it's very thin, but it has a travel theme. So I just used this to cover my board using collage medium. And then once it dried, then I started playing with some of my ephemera. Now, this is a die, and I cut it out, and then what I did is I used some of the embossing glaze to give it some shine, and hopefully you can see that, that it gives it a little bit of shine. The paper that I use is from it's the new paper pack that has all the mixed media background, and I used that paper, and then I added the distress embossing glaze to give it a little bit of shine. Now most of this is just ephemera, and the ephemera packs I used were let's see here, the salvage tags. I think I pulled something from salvage tags. I can't remember. I have all of this all over my desk. And then the field notes ephemera. Most of it's coming from that. And then of course I've got this little metal element. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using this or not, but I was just kind of playing with it. This is originally what I came out with. But I wanted to put some sort of a metal element, and I think ultimately I'll use one of these factory tags that will go right here. But I always like to add some sort of metal embellishment, especially if I have a metal hook. Now this, I found that in a estate sale, and this is a vintage clip that I thought would be great to go on the top as my item to hang my board. So I put that on first so I would have an idea of how to do my layout. And then from there, it was just a matter of adding all of my items to my board. Now, like I said, most of the time, none of this is glued down yet. I'll just play with it a while before I actually go to glue it down. And I think this is ultimately what I'm going to end up with. When I first started, I didn't have these. These were the last items that I added. And I thought about just leaving it like this. And I think it looks great with all the green tones. But then I decided I wanted to add just a couple more items, and I went with some neutral colors. And that's where I came up with the butterflies, just as a final addition. And as you can see, I'm still kind of arranging here. I think that's how I'm going to do it. But it just fills the spot, and even though I have more items here on the right side than the left side, I still wanted to do something here. And then this is one of the chipboards. Today is full of possibilities that I'll be adding down as well. But as you can see, there's balance, and that's really what I'm trying to get at, is when you're putting these together, you want to not only have layers, but you want to have balance. And you don't necessarily have to have something covering the whole thing. As you can see, this is a little bit heavier with the ephemera pieces, and then this is a little bit lighter with the butterflies, and it still works. And what I might do is I might, I'm not sure yet, I might come back and add some distress embossing lace on the butterflies, but I may not. I haven't decided yet. But I'm definitely going to add some of the distress embossing lace to this. And then once I've decided exactly how my layout will go, then I will come in with my collage medium and my paintbrush, and then I'll just start laying it down. And this is a really easy process. I'll just go ahead and show you here. So I just get some of the collage medium on my paintbrush, and then I just add it like an adhesive. And what I like about the collage medium is not only does it work as an adhesive on the back side, but then you can brush over it as well to make sure you get a nice adhesion to your board. And then you just let it dry. But this definitely is the last thing that you want to do when you are putting together a collage. You don't want to glue it down until you know exactly what your layout's going to be. And like I said, I've been working on this all afternoon, so I was pretty happy with the results. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere it down. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all adhered down, and then I'll come back and I'll share with you the final project. Okay, everybody, I'm back, and here is my finished project. So let me go ahead and walk you through what I did here. So as you saw, I did all these layers, and then some of the finishing touches. I had added the distress glaze on my world die, and then also on his suit, so you can kind of see his shine. And then for his hat, I used the vintage photo. And then for my little mushrooms here, I did use a pop-up. Now, one of the things when I'm doing a collage, I don't want to just use foam dots. So what I typically will do is I'll get some cardboard paper, and I will add that on the back for dimension, and then I'll glue it with something really strong, like my 3-in-1 beacon is typically what I'll use. I did add a metal element. Now, if you are working with a board, as I did on this one, it's a good idea to add your brads to paper and then glue the paper, and that's what I did here, and that's still a little loose, and I made room for it to still move. That's how I wanted it. So the lifted mushroom here was a nice addition because it will fit right under there. I don't have the new I guess it's the washi tape, so I just used some of my old stickers that I had. And then for the layering, he is sitting, so I needed to have something across here so that he can sit on. And then again, I know I've said this before, but don't be afraid to cover up your layers when you're layering. Don't be afraid to cover up something that's really pretty. I knew I wanted the title, The Naturalist, to show, so I was strategic about that layering. But this is a whole piece of ephemera that has some picture on the back. But you know, if you're layering, you're going to cover some things. You just have to accept that. And then finally, for my Today is Full of Possibilities, I did add a little distress ink on the edges for that. And then I ended it with the word hope on the world because, you know, with the coronavirus going around right now, I just thought that was a nice final touch. Something to get us through this time, something to get our minds off of it. So I hope that you like my project. I know that I said that I would do some of these on film, but they're really hard to put together because a lot of it is just playing with your layering and kind of figuring out what you want to do. But I did want to point out some of the items and some of the extras that I did for this with the distress glaze. And then I did use some of this antique Mod Podge to go over some of my items just to give a little bit more of a muted look. And then, like I said, I had this already where I had added distress stain on the back. And now it'll be ready to hang up. It probably will end up in my Etsy shop. So if this is something you might be interested in, check out, not my Etsy shop, my shop Tailor-Made Cards for You. I do have items in my Etsy shop, but big items like this I'll typically put in my own shop. So be sure to check that out. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week in crafting. All right, we'll talk to you later.